When we talked about World War One, we had a hard time finding a starting point. There's a whole bunch of different issues that ranged in different times, and it's just a mess. It's very complicated to talk about the origins of World War One. World War Two really doesn't have that problem, particularly when it comes to what started it, and that's going to, of course, be Adolf Hitler. Hitler has no problem going to war, but his future enemies do. Britain, France, and even the United States all will actually be very reluctant to do anything about Hitler militarily until it was too late. In 1933, for example, the Oxford University student body would actually have a resolution say that its members would not fight for England under any circumstances. The French, in the aftermath of World War I losses, would actually build a large defensive line known as the Maginot Line, which effectively paralyzed the French response to Germany in 1940. Hitler tries to take advantage of this pacifism in Europe. Between 36 and 39, he engages in a number of diplomatic successes that are truly astonishing. For example, in 1936, he remilitarizes the borderlands between France and Germany, known as the Rhineland, something that he was supposed not to have done, according to the Treaty of Versailles. In 1938, he annexes Austria, again, something specifically prohibited by the Treaty of Versailles. In 1938, he annexed the German-speaking part of Czechoslovakia, known as the Sudetenland. And then in March of 1939, takes it over. All of Czechoslovakia, I mean. At each stage, the major powers of Europe, particularly Britain and France, protested but did nothing militarily. And in the case of the Sudetenland, they actually gave it to Hitler. So they actively encouraged much of his actions through that. In the summer of 1939, Hitler planned a move that he knew would generate opposition, the invasion of Poland. He knew that it would generate opposition from the Poles, but he also thought that the only power that might actually join the Poles in their opposition was actually the Soviet Union. Now, his ultimate aim is to destroy the Soviet Union and to make way for his new Germany, but he was not ready to undertake an adventure of that size in 1939. What he basically, in fact, needed in 1939 was to find a way to neutralize the Soviet Union, to make certain that the Soviet army was not coming to the aid of the Poles. So he offered an agreement. He told them that he would attack the Poles from the west and give eastern Poland to the Soviet Union. And so Germany and the Soviet Union both split Poland, not right down the middle, but in a way that would give Germany about 2/3 of the country and the Soviet Union the remaining third. He also agreed to the Soviets the opportunity to pick up a couple of places in Eastern Europe. This agreement was made in August of 1939, and Hitler believed that his way was clear to attack. So on September 1st, 1939, he invades Poland. On September 3rd, Britain and France declare war on Germany. Now, he's stunned by this. He absolutely is surprised. Why in the world would France and Britain declare war on Germany over Poland when they did not declare war on Germany over Austria and Czechoslovakia? The reasons rest in the attitudes of the British Prime Minister of the time, named Neville Chamberlain. When Hitler remilitarized Germany and when he took over Austria, Chamberlain believed that Hitler might be violating the letter of the Treaty of Versailles, but he was not violating the spirit of the treaty because he was only annexing German-speaking territories. So Hitler really was following that principle of self-determination of peoples, since in both places the people involved were happy with the results. Even when Hitler demanded the Sudetenland, Chamberlain believed that he was not violating the spirit of the law. In fact, of the Versailles. In fact, he was following its spirit, mainly because of the fact that Sudetenland was inhabited overwhelmingly by a German-speaking minority. In exchange for the Sudetenland, Hitler agreed that he would not make any more moves on the international scene, and that he was satisfied. And he even signed a treaty and an agreement, to that effect. Chamberlain flies back home, and on the tarmac of the airport, he has the piece of paper in his hand, and he declares that it meant peace in our time. The turning point, of course, will be in March of 1939, when Hitler marches into the rest of Czechoslovakia in a violation of his agreement with Chamberlain. The Czechs and the Slovaks were not Germans, and Chamberlain realized that he had been trusting a man who would just become another conqueror. He decided that no matter what Hitler would do, Britain and France would stop him in his next turn. And that next place was going to be Poland. So when Hitler invades Poland, Britain and France declared war. That was not the war that Hitler wanted to fight. In fact, most Germans at the time regarded the British as their opponent and the Soviet Union as their enemy. There is a difference. Hitler basically wanted to fight the Soviet Union eventually, but now he had to turn his attention to the West. That period between September 1st, 1939 and April 1940 is what we call the Phony War. The Germans and the Soviets, they overran Poland in 6 weeks, but the British and the French do nothing. The French go into their Maginot Line to await the German onslaught, and the British put their forces in Belgium, just in case the Germans attacked there. And then they waited.